few years ago, you needed to be a GDPR expert, then you needed to be a CCPA expert. And now we are asking people to be an AI regulation expert. No, not possible. So
Hey everyone, I'm so glad that we have Punit Bhatia with us today. Punit is the principal behind Fit for Privacy. He's a prolific author and a podcast host, and he has spent a lot of time in the European privacy regulation space, particularly focused on GDPR. I know Punit also does a lot of work with international customers and customers here in America. What is very exciting is that Punit and Tom Kemp, our other speaker, are part of Enterprise Dreaming, and they're going to talk about privacy and ethics when it comes to AI. So, Punit, when it comes to AI around privacy and ethics, what's happening in Europe and what can our attendees expect from your session?
first and foremost, thank you so much for having me, Saurabh. It's wonderful to be part of this group. Now, AI and privacy, if you see EU, it usually leads with regulation, rules, and everything. And that's the same thing that's happening with privacy and AI. If you see, 2016, we had the privacy legislation, that's GDPR, it came into effect, and now we're aiming to regulate AI as well. So there is an AI regulation, but the good part is it's not prescriptive. It's not binary saying do this, don't do that. It's like a GDPR. If you like GDPR and navigating complexity, you like the AI regulation also. It is around principles. And one of the principles is responsible AI. So don't ask me what is responsible AI now, because otherwise we will put in all the conference stuff here. But responsible AI, trustworthy AI, accountable AI, those are the kind of concepts we are talking, and that's where the focus is. But believe me, we can talk about all these things, but China and then US would definitely go ahead with AI. So that's where the exciting debate is going to be. So the debate is not what Europe is doing, what China is doing, what our US is doing. Technology is here. People are going to use it. And how do we make best use of it? And how do we make sure that it happens in a responsible way? That's the debate that's happening in EU.
That's a really great point. I think one of the areas of particular interest to our audience is if you're an enterprise and you're looking at incorporating AI into your day-to-day, into your Salesforce, into your other business systems, and you want to apply AI on potentially customer data and other kind of data, are there specific considerations around that when you think about it from an EU privacy lens?
Well, definitely there are those constraints, there are those rules, there are those principles, and there are those requirements. But I always say to organizations that when I'm working with them, I say, don't look at these rules, because that's the operational side of it. You need to put in a strategy, you need to put in a blueprint on how you're going to manage AI and privacy. You set in that organizational setup, you set in that outline corporate approach on how you're going to manage it. And then whether EU brings in its law or US brings in its law or China brings it in its law or whosoever, then you fit into that, because you cannot continually adapt or adopt a different approach. Like even with the GDPR, if you remember last conference we were talking, we were saying you cannot comply with GDPR, CCPA, CPRA, Virginia, and so on and so forth. You have to have your own approach and then cater to these laws as an exception. And that's the same approach I always recommend. But specifically to your question on rules, yes. But first, the infrastructure, the organizational infrastructure and setup and strategy is what you need. Once you have the staff trained, people assigned, they will take care of the rules, because you cannot become expert in each and every law. A few years ago, you needed to be a GDPR expert, then you needed to be a CCPA expert. And now we are asking people to be an AI regulation expert. No, not possible. So set up infrastructure, set up governance, and there you take it up.
That's a really good point. So basically have a foundation that is really stringent enough so that you don't have to continually readjust it for every regulation that comes out of whatever region, particularly if you're a global customer. And is that something you are covering in our session?
Yes, indeed. In fact, you very well said it's a foundation. So basically set up the organization structure, put in the organizational governance, have the right people around the table and drive AI. AI is not going to wait for you. You can say, okay, there are rules. I will wait for AI rules to come in and then we will start. No, you got to start now, and you got to start in a responsible way. And that's where the focus is. So yes, that's what I talk about in the conference. That's what we talk about in the book AI and Privacy also. That's what Tom is talking about, containing big tech. So all that comes together, and we talk about the pre aspect of before you go into the nitty gritties. Before you talk about the rules, how do you set and organize yourself?
That's great. I'm looking forward to it. Sounds like very interesting and extremely relevant. I've spoken with a lot of companies, particularly here in the US. There is a lot of concern in healthcare, financial services, even B2C companies that are large global organizations are quite worried about the ramifications of that in Europe and Italy and places like that. So I think this session will be really, really useful. I know that your enterprise dreaming starts on the 23rd of August, and this session is on the 24th of August. And I hope people get an opportunity to benefit from your and Tom's perspective. I really appreciate that you are giving your time for this, and thank you so much for doing that.
Pleasure, Saurabh. I mean, thanks to you and your team and everyone who's behind it in organizing this, because it takes a lot of effort. And I appreciate you guys are doing this.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.